You know, I think this could be a historic trip for President Trump, but there's a growing chasm between what it was intended to accomplish and what it reasonably can accomplish, given the controversy back here in the U.S. regarding his alleged ties to Russia. You know, Arabs are famous for greeting guests with pomp and circumstance, for being gracious hosts. And you see that in the footage that you're showing. As Pete said, they've really rolled out the platinum carpet for President Trump and for his administration. And you see them serving them coffee in a beautiful room, and they're in a round circle. But one of the other things that famous for is telling you what they think you want to hear and not necessarily what they're thinking. I spoke with one Arab official whose leader is attending the meetings this week, and he worries that with what is happening with President Trump at home, it's distracting from the message. The message is supposed to be, as Mike said, that the U.S. is going to take leadership in fighting ISIS. It's going to take leadership on the broader effort to fight Islamic extremism, and that the U.S. is going to pivot towards the Arab Gulf country allies away from Iran and take a stronger stance to Iran. But the Arab leaders that the president will be meeting with are wondering if this president now has the fortitude, the strength, and the support back home to deliver on those policy changes.
All right, Rebecca, so we do have now the White House official statement on the Saudi arms deal that is happening now. I want to read you just part of this. It says, this package of defense equipment and services support the long-term security of Saudi Arabia and the Gulf region in the face of Iranian threats, while also bolstering the kingdom's ability to contribute to counterterrorism operations across the region, reducing the burden on the U.S. military to conduct those operations. And it finally just says that this package demonstrates in the clearest terms possible the United States' commitment to our partnership with Saudi Arabia and our Gulf partners. So this really does seem, Rebecca, like a huge reset button and maybe a positive step forward for these two nations.
Yeah, the United States is trying to undo a lot of what President Obama set out to do during his 2 terms. And that is pushing Iran back. I mean, Iran was very empowered during the Obama administration. The Iran deal, do remember, the Iran deal only just focused on the nuclear program very narrowly, and it relaxed a lot of the prohibitions on missile testing as it pertained to the actual Iran deal itself. So the Iranians have been testing lots of ballistic missiles, and one of the things that that now Secretary Mattis had said when he was the general was that he was very worried about the Iran deal because it would empower the Iranians, and there would be a cascade of missiles throughout, and then that would upset the balance in the rest of the Arab world. And so a lot of this, a lot of these weapons programs that you're going to see coming out of this deal have to do with now pushing Iran back and empowering our Arab allies to be able to protect themselves. And that's where you're going to see a lot of the missile defense systems talked about as well. So a lot of this is doing cleanup, and it's a reset and sort of trying to rebalance and get stability back in the Middle East.
Colonel, 2 questions for you, 2-part question. First, one, how does Iran react to this? And then 2, a big part of the statement is that the White House just became unembargoed right at 9:30 now. It talks about reducing the burden of the U.S. military to conduct these operations. How much of this is about backing away a little bit from how involved we've been?
Well, look, you're seeing a broader theme here that we've realized since the invasion of Iraq. In the Green Beret community, we call it by, with, and through. We cannot tackle this global scourge of Islamic extremism that's stretching from the Philippines to North Africa to the Middle East by ourselves. You're not going to see hundreds of thousands of American boots on the ground in the Middle East going forward. We have to do this through surrogates, whether it's like the Kurds, or we have to do it through partner nations, and that means building the capacity and the capability of the Saudis, the Afghans, and other nation-state military forces. You have to do that through weapons sales, and you want those tied in and capable and able to link in with the United States, and then you have to do that with training and advising and assisting. You're going to see that also, looking forward, a big part of what I think President Trump is going to announce at NATO, and what most folks expect to be 3,000 to 5,000 more American troops to go into Afghanistan, but in a supporting role, not kicking in doors and pulling triggers, advising and assisting the Afghan army. And that's going to be a common thread in our strategy going forward.
David, I'm not sure if you had a chance to hear our Charles Payne on the Fox Business Network a short time ago talking about the shift away from oil in Saudi Arabia and how the United States, with a surplus, a trade surplus now, which shifted from years ago. We were billions in dollars in debt to Saudi Arabia. It's now shifted in our favor. They're trying to build skyscrapers, moving away from oil. Part of this package is unique opportunities for U.S. companies to expand into that region, to provide all sorts of, tens of thousands of new jobs in the United States. That's incredibly important for this region. What do you see from that side of this story?
Well, I agree with Charles. It's not just Saudi Arabia. Across the Middle East, and especially in the Gulf, they're trying to diversify their economies. But in Saudi Arabia is still the biggest producer of oil. It has the largest reserves of oil, and most of its revenues come from oil at 12 million barrels of oil per day. And so oil is still a really important issue for Saudi Arabia. But President Trump going to the Middle East, trying to strike deals, trying to help American companies and advocate for American companies to be able to sell and provide services in these important markets is an important part of what the president needs to do. And I'd like to see the Secretary of Commerce really embrace that effort as well and really help advocate for companies in the Middle East. There is a really great market there, especially given how much revenues come in to countries like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE from oil and from sales of gas.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Lieutenant Colonel Michael Waltz, thank you very much for joining us, as well as Rebecca Heinrichs and David Tafuri. Excellent analysis in real time as we follow developments in Saudi Arabia and this historic visit.
A busy morning.
That's right. Well, President